I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting this evening on the shared territory of the Snawas and Qualicum First Nation, and we thank them for allowing us to live, work, and play in this wonderful part of the Coast Salish lands. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please, for the adoption of the agenda? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Seconded, Trustee Austin. All those in favor? Thank you, Trustee Young, ducking in and out there. Carried. And could I have approval of the consent agenda items as presented this evening? A mover and a seconder, please, unless someone wishes to pull anything out. To move, Trustee Kellogg. Seconded. Seconder, please. Second, Trustee Young. Seeing no questions, all those in favor? Carried. We have no delegations this evening and no public questions written as to this point. We do have, though, as our first item on the agenda is bringing back a motion that we tabled until this evening. It was moved by myself and seconded by Trustee Kellogg that the Board of Education School District 69 support the closure of both Qualicum Commons and Strike Street Commons to public and business use effective July 1st, 2025. As this has been moved and seconded already and it's back on the table, is there any comments, trustees? Trustee Austin.
Yeah, so I'm aware that we want to give our tenants as much time as possible if they do have to make some new arrangements. I'm also aware that we've had some proposals come forward to us about these sites, and I sort of feel like we're a bit like here right now. It would be nice to be able to give our tenants some definitive answers. Or anyway, I'm of two minds because we know that there have been some interest in the sites, and we're sort of looking at them and entertaining them. And that may or may not affect the tenants. And so I'm wondering if this is a little bit premature. On the other hand, I'm also aware that it's nice to give as much heads up as possible.
Thank you, Trustee Austin. Are there any other comments, trustees? Trustee Young.
Well, it's not a surprise that I feel very much like Trustee Austin. However, I think we need to give this a little bit more time. This is not an easy process for any of us, and we want to make sure that we don't inadvertently, evict people when we don't need to, and at the same time, things are happening in the background, and as soon as we possibly can, we'll get these out in the public, but no decisions have been made so far. So I think that either defeating this, bringing it back later, or deferring it in some way is probably the best course of action at this time. The other possibility is to close one of the sites and keep the other one open, but at this point I'm kind of leaning toward let's defer this or defeat it.
Trustee Kellogg. You're mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
I just want people to know that we're in a process right now and things could change, but this is part of the process that we have to go through as landlords for those buildings. But as Trustee Young has said, we are looking at offers for those sites. So yeah, I think this is just probably a process piece, and that things may end up changing.
Thank you, trustee Kellogg. Trustee Kurland.
Echo. It's, yeah, I agree with Carol. This is part of the requirements that you have to do before you close a place. You know, there's certain timelines and stipulations. Doesn't mean that we're gonna do it. So I think that we have to just go along with the requirements for advance notice. That's really all it means, and go from there. So I'm going to vote in favor of this just because that's what we're doing.
Okay, I think some people have voted to defeat, some people are in favor of trustee Austin, and then I might suggest we also consider, well, we'll see how the vote goes. Let's see how the vote goes. Trustee Austin.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, after hearing Elaine, I would like to defer this. I understand that some people think it's a process piece, and it is, in all fairness. But I think if it turns out that there's an opportunity for those present tenants to be able to stay, I think it would be better, and it would be a little, perhaps a better way to word this motion at a later date. And if not, I don't think January is putting it off too much. I think we actually have until the end of March, I believe. That's 3 months, that's 90 days notice. We definitely, I think it would only be fair to give people more than that 90 days. So I think by putting it off to January, that's still giving them an extra 60 days. But I think we will have perhaps a little more clear picture. And again, yeah, we're looking at two different sites. I mean, they're not sort of parceled together. They're going to have different paths, perhaps, and different. So I think maybe we should be looking at these as two different sites at the same time. Thanks.
Okay, well, let's call the question on the motion as it stands right now. Mr. Amos.
I would just wonder if you wanted to weigh me in on the procedurally kind of thing, just to remind the public and obviously the trustee a little bit in terms of where we're at and what we're considering, obviously, make sure the trustees understand. So currently, again, recognizing that this is a motion that was before the board in November was its initial inception. And so the idea being, we need a decision, absolutely, but the question is alternately, when do we make that decision? And as well, is the decision going to be the same for both of them? So recognizing that the board is entertaining some proposals, and in the interest of obviously recognizing that we don't want to cause angst amongst the tenants for too long, and we do know that we've got to give them notice at some point should the decision be ultimately to close these sites. But in the interest of obviously making the decision independent of one another, I think the chair indicated that maybe separating the two decisions independently, but also so that there would be two motions going forward, and then ultimately with the board making some final deadline to give notice to the tenants that the decision date will be this time. So I think what's before you is a motion that, without weighing in on if it's going to be defeated or not, but again, recognizing that you may want to back away from this motion, and you can either defer it if you want to deal with it together, or if you want to defeat it, then at least then you can put a new motion on the table that entertains two separate motions with the deadline of when those motions will come forward. So I think that's really what's before you. You defeat this and create a couple more with a timeline, or you pass this motion and as it stands.
Is there any more comments, trustees? Because then I'll call a question on the motion as it stands today.
Thank you very much, Ron, for that clarification. So just to be very clear, I think, like I would like to see it as treating the two sites as two different places, because they are. So I will probably be voting to defeat the motion. I'll vote to defeat the motion, and then at some point, and then we can
We
bring
bring
it back
back.
as two separate ones. And are we going to vote on when that would be, or would
Yes.
that happen in Jan? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Wait, yeah. Let's get the vote on the table for this motion first, and then we'll frame the next two. Call a question then. All those in favor of the motion as it stands? Contrary minded? So the motion is defeated. I think with the information and the presentations and some of the information we have to date, it would be better to uncouple these two sites as they are a bit different, and to tie them together is a bit complicating. So I would propose that we have two motions going forward, that the support for closure of Craig Street Commons be brought forward to the January 28th, 2025 regular board meeting. Could I have a seconder? And I don't know, do we want to initiate a concept in there of when notice to tenants would be made by March 1st?
Can I just, do you mind if I clarify the motion?
Yeah.
That the
Help us
Board of
with-
Education of School District 69 support the closure of of Qualicum Commons to public and business use effective July 1, to be debated for a decision in January.
At January 28th. Okay, it's better to add that at the, okay.
Okay, and then the same verbiage for the
Motion.
next one.
Next
should okay, that way,
Okay.
okay, again, just for clarity, that way the motion is still going to read effective July 1, but you want it brought forward by January's board meeting, January the 28th.
Okay,
So just to clarify, we're separating the two sites, but we're keeping the same dates.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll move the first for Qualicum Commons. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg.
I'd just
Are there
like to,
any-
yeah, I'm just clarifying yet again. This is not the motion to close this site. This is the motion to move this motion to the January 28th meeting.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted that very, very clear. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's okay. Call a question. All those in favor? Thank you, carried. And the second version, though, to keep the sites not the same, move to support the closure of Craig Street Commons to public and business use effective July 2025. The decision to be considered at the January 28th, 2025 regular board meeting. So moved. Could I have a seconder? Trustee Young. Questions? No further clarification required. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, I think that clears things up a bit and gives us a bit of time to entertain more discussion with some of the people who have come forward. First up this evening then is reports, and it's Mount Arrowsmith Teachers Association, and I don't see on my screen Matt Wood.
I'm here.
Okay, great.
Do you hear me?
Secretary.
Can you hear
Yep,
me?
I can see. Yep.
I can see, yeah, so you're on my phone right now, so it's all good.
Oh.
Bonsoir, Hawanit, and good evening, everyone. I'm coming from you from the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations today, or tonight, this evening. I'm currently over here involved in the part of the BC Federation of Labor, and been so far the last couple of days have been some excellent speakers, including our premier, and able to actually have some good discussions with members of labor. So I'm not going to spend too long tonight, but I do want to point out and thank the board for the recognition that will happen this Friday. And, in reflection of being with workers and other unionized members across the province, it is important to acknowledge the work that the workers do. Without workers, work does not get done. So we need our teachers and our support staff and our CUPE members, all of which help create the great education system that we have. And the importance of valuing the work that each one of these employees do is extremely important. As we know, when you feel valued, you bring your best to anything that you do. So I just want to appreciate that there'll be some recognition for long service, 10, 20, and 30 year this Friday. And I know I will try and get to a couple sites. I can't spread myself around to all 9, but do appreciate that recognition and request that the board continue to do many things. This is one small token to value the employees and the time that they dedicate to the district and to the professions that they work with. And so to continue with this and look for other avenues as well. I know teachers appreciate it. I'm positive CUPE members appreciate it. And so I just wanted to make that recognition tonight. So that is it for me. Merci beaucoup. Ayesepqua, and thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Yes, it'll be great fun on Friday. And trustees, folks, if you can take some pictures while you're there with your recipients, that would be grand. We kind of had our own roving photographer last year, but we'll see if you can snap a few on your phones while you're or have someone take your phones and snap some. QB, you and I don't see Mr. Rycroft, but that doesn't mean that he's not here. There he is. I see, bottom corner. Mr. Rycroft.
Yeah, no report at this time. Thank you.
Okay. And DPAC has submitted just a short report, which I will consider under policy because it's directed at the policy discussions. And so I'll bring it up at that time their commentary, but they are not able to make it this evening as well. Trustee Young.
Yeah, I didn't see commentary there, and it's very helpful just as an ex-policy chair. If people can be really specific about what kinds of things they would like to see rather than what is presented in policy, it is very, very difficult to wordsmith when you don't know exactly what you're wordsmithing. So if people can be very clear, that's very helpful.
Yeah, maybe you can bring that up again at the policy discussion when we review policy. Trustee Austin.
I was just going to say DPAC asked that this be incorporated as their DPAC report. I don't think it's anything wrong with saying the report said they weren't in agreement with proposed policy 605. So that's why it'll be coming up under policy report.
Right.
But I think we can get it in as part of their DPAC report because that's what was requested.
Yep, I think that's how I opened it, but now we've spoken to it. I can. No action items and information items. Superintendent's report. Dr. Jory.
Thanks, Chair Flynn. Hello, everyone. Esquel. Bonjour. What a beautiful day we had in the traditional territory of the Qualicum Heslanas First Nations today. The clouds parted, the sun came out, and we got a look at the snow-covered mountains, which were amazing. The weather forecasters, who are calling for colder, wetter La Nina winter, are now telling us it only has a 57% chance of happening instead of a 71% chance. There's some data for you. Either way, the local snowpack seemed to be off to a healthy start, which is encouraging for skiers and stream keepers alike. My own hope is to not have any snow days, of course, as they do interfere with learning and tie up operational staff. We will see how it goes this year. As I mentioned last year, November is conference month in the education world. Exempt staff have taken turns attending events hosted by BCPC, VISA, BCSSA, ITK12, BCSTA, BCASBO, and BCPVPA. Some of our trustees and I attended a number of learning sessions last week, got introduced to our new Minister of Education and Childcare, Lisa Beer, who formerly held the post-secondary portfolio. Superintendents met our new ministry boss, Deputy Minister Catherine Krishna, We also learned that we have a new Minister of State for Childcare and Youth, a new position, which will be Jody Wicker. These appointments were brand new as of last week, and the mandate letters will not be issued until January, we are told. So there will be much learning and discovering to do in the meantime. But the sector does seem to have a renewed sense of optimism about how everything will go for this term of government. Superintendents also got a chance to provide their thoughts with ministry staff through a roundtable format on a number of topics, many of which stem from campaign promises that were shared over the previous 2 months. Better late than never, I suppose. Senior staff and trustees back in the district. We have business as usual for this time of year. Sports teams are switching from volleyball and football over to basketball. Remembrance Days events are done, and planning for winter concerts is already underway. Woohoo! FSAs have been completed and marked. We have enjoyed a number of learning and planning sessions, including a visit yesterday from the dynamic Shelley Moore. Friday's Ministry Day will feature a morning of school planning and an afternoon virtual session with Carolyn Roberts, along with staff recognition lunches, as mentioned, which we are all looking forward to, no doubt. Send those photos to me, everyone, and I will share them in the next Constant Contact. In our next informal conversation, I will hope to be engaging with the board about what further steps we would like to take in regard to a transportation review. We have rolled out electronic registration, moved those registration dates back several months earlier, implemented busing software that has reduced ride times and fuel costs, as well as helped parents to keep track of their students. The focus of the next conversation will be what further improvements to efficiency and service can be discovered and what means we would like to pursue this information from our partners out there. More to follow. As I often do, I want to thank all of our staff for their hard work and enthusiasm this November. It's great to hear all the positive stories about people pulling together to support our students to give, grow, belong, and most importantly, learn in the Qualicum School District. Haisepka, everyone. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Trustee Austin.
Thank you for that, Peter. I just wanted to mention, because you mentioned Remembrance Day and moving into Christmas concerts, and I just wanted to speak to that. I went to 2 of the Remembrance Day assemblies in our district, and they are always very moving. But I think one of the things that moved me the most was the students and how attentive they were, how they recognized the importance of that day and how it should be remembered, year long. So, just a real shout out to our staff that work with the students, but especially to the students themselves. And I really want to thank them for being so attentive during those assemblies.
Thanks, Trustee Austin. Trustee Kellogg.
Yes, I just wanted to say too, I went to Ballina Secondary for their Remembrance Day ceremony, and Chief Rakalma was there. It was pointed out by the administration that the students had done the Remembrance Day ceremony, and I found myself, I'm not a very emotional person, but I found myself very touched by the things that they displayed, the band, the choir. It was quite an exceptional day. So I just wanted to point out that I really enjoyed myself. It was wonderful.
Thanks, Trustee Kellogg. Okay, next on is Educational Programs Update, and it's the Associate Superintendent, Ms. Wilson, and Director of Instruction, Mr. Terpstra. I don't know who's going first and who's bringing up second.
I got my mic off first. Maybe I can go first this time. It's a race for who can say what great work we're doing, and so we can boast about our staff and the work that our students are doing. Just a couple of things for me. I want to just touch on something that already Superintendent Jory spoke about, and that's having Shelley Moore in our community yesterday. In the afternoon, she worked with our learning support teachers, and that was part of what we had been recommended through our audit process, that we needed to tweak our competency-based individual education plans and do a little bit of learning around that. And so we did that. She was engaging and dynamic, as already mentioned, and she made something that, we don't all love paperwork all the time, but it's something that we have to do. And so she made it a very engaging and thoughtful around why we do individual education plans for our students and what that looks like. But the great thing is in the evening from 4 till after 7, we had 110 employees attend excuse me, a dinner session with Shelley. We had principals, vice principals, district staff, educational assistants, child and youth care workers, Indigenous advocates, teachers, our social worker. We had all parts of our education side of our organization represented and attended the session. 110 people came out to listen to Shelley in the afternoon, and her topic was around inclusive education and what that truly means in our classrooms, and making sure that we're working to support all learners, each and every one of them, all the time. One thing that was really great is that our framework for learning and supporting each and every child in our system was sent to Shelley, and she put it into her presentation. So that's the work that we've done with Kale through the different groups that we worked with and developed our framework for learning. She brought that out and she showed how that fits, and that is truly universal design for learning for each and every student. So I felt really honored that she recognized the work that we were doing and took the conversations that Tandy and I had with her and made it specific to our community and acknowledged the work we'd already done. So great credit to all the teachers, knowing that it is a busy time of the year in terms of we are doing our learning plan, reporting our communicating student learning to parents, but it was wonderful to see that many people. The other thing I just wanted to touch base on is that I keep saying that I'll give you an update on where we are with our integrated child and youth team, the ICY, which is something our community has. We had the privilege of interviewing for a clinical counselor, and we hope that that will be an additional added staff person to that team, and we can start the referral process, and it will be feet on the ground, boots on the ground to be able to support some of the needs that are in our community. So great work there, and looking forward to adding a team member. Thank you.
Great question, Trustee Young.
Just a little bit more information on Shelley Moore. I have become a Moorite, and I think that she's got it in terms of looking at inclusive education and looking at removing barriers and focusing on strengths. And I just think for folks who haven't read or experienced Shelley, do, because it is an experience. And the other thing is that I want to say is it's always good to have an RCC in our district, so thank you very much.
Hey, over to you, Mr. Terpstra.
All right, just going to screen share here. And yeah, this is from the Ed Committee that I shared, and we just want to share a few of the learning events that are going on in the district. This one was a 3-part series, Culturally Responsive and Inclusive Schools using Circle. We're really excited for the next one that's coming up. We actually had to cancel on November 21st. As Superintendent Jory said, it is a really busy week, and we have our district-wide day on Friday, and so those sessions are coming up. This is, again, speaking of Shelley Moore, engaging all learners in the middle. We are hosting a viewing party, and I appreciate some of the trustees came out of this, and we've had more registrants, and people can also register individually and see it at sites. But December 3rd, our featured educators are Katie Marin and Sarah Elson Hogan. So we're excited to see that. The next thing is, as everybody's heard, our learning rounds with Carol Fullerton. Coming up in February, we have a dinner series. And just to echo what Associate Superintendent Wilson said, it is something that's unique to our district, that we can have events with dinner that are well attended, and I appreciate that about our system and our teachers and education staff that are willing to learn together over a meal any given day. Just some pictures. this was our learning rounds around numeracy. We're doing this twice this year. We went to 2 classrooms where there's actually 30 teachers in this room. We had a grade 7 class, which you're seeing here. And you can see the kids using manipulatives. This is what it looks like when the learning's going on, the teaching's going on. This was in the grade 2 classroom. Some of our students and appreciate not only using manipulatives to show their math, they're actually able to write their solutions on their boards, and collaborative learning around numeracy. And again, in the grade 2 classroom. Last couple things that I just wanted to share and touch base on. Yesterday was an amazing day of learning for a few of us. We hosted 75 basically teacher leaders from all over the island. It's called the Island Leadership Coalition. It's put on by the BC Superintendents Association Island chapter in conjunction with the Principals Association. They lead some of the learning. And we had 5 of our teachers. This is the 3rd year in a row that we've done it. It's really about leading from where they stand, but also getting a glimpse at potential formal leadership opportunities. Superintendent Jory came to visit us and loved that we were actually exploring our own district data as leaders, which was awesome. And then the whole second half of the afternoon was actually looking at school plans and strategic plans for our district. So it was very current, and really gave our teachers the opportunity to understand the workings of strategic plans, school goals, how we get there, and how the data informs the work we do. And last, speaking of data, FSAs are officially over, and we had a scoring team last weekend, and we'll expect the results pretty close to Christmas break. But I just want to say, yeah, the FSAs, district assessments are winding up. We're getting groups of teachers, and then in January, you can expect a fulsome report on what we learned about our students from this most recent round of fall assessments across the district and province. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Terpstra. I have Trustee Young and then Superintendent Dr. Jory.
This is kind of overlaps with the education report. Director Terpstra, could we make sure that those learning series, all of those learning series, go up somewhere so that I can remember to mark them in my book, because I'm not at home right now. And I just a little recap of the Education Committee. We had a really exciting time, but I'm worried that people won't look to the end of our agenda. So please look to the end of our agenda and to our report, which I will highlight when we get there. Thanks.
Dr. Jory.
Just want to add on to Mr. Terpstra's comments about the data conversation. When I arrived, they had all this information out on the table, and I, of course, was quite delighted to see that. But what was amusing is one of them made a rather cheeky comment to the effect that somehow they had spread this data out on the table. I had sensed it, and then like magically appeared as a result. That's not what happened, but it did sound like a very robust conversation. And I think one of the things that everyone took pride in is noting that how students come into our system is, often quite vulnerable. And one of the pieces that was noticed right away by our team is what a good job our district does in regard to literacy and numeracy skills, especially early on, to move our students forward and prepare them for whatever challenges come in the future. So that was notable of that conversation.
Thanks, Dr. Jory. And thank you to the team in the Educational Programs Update. So we'll move on now to Finance and Operations Committee of the Whole report. Trustee Kellogg, pages 1921 and then 22 to 76.
That the Board of Education of School District Number 69 Qualicum received the Statement of Financial Information, SOFI report for the year end of June 30th, 2024.
So moved by trustee Kellogg. Could I have a seconder, please? And I'll ask Mr. Amos to expand on Sophie for folks that don't know. A seconder, please, for the motion. Thank you, trustee Kurland. And Mr. Amos, pages 22 to 76. You wish to give us the thresholds again? And
Absolutely. Yes, so absolutely. This is a report that gets filed annually. And as far as timelines, we have an obligation to make it public by the end of December 31, which is effectively 6 months after year end. Embedded in that package is some requirements in terms of information that it contains. It contains some more guarantees that we are not paying severance, and if so, to declare that. It speaks to staff or employees that earn greater than $75,000 and suppliers receiving greater than $25,000 in total compensation. It's got at the end of it, obviously, it's got a reconciliation to basically the cash flow to the expenses being reported on the financial statements. And ultimately, it includes the financial statements that have already been previously submitted and received by the board. Again, time-wise, our board will receives it today. It gets sent off to the ministry by the end of this month to meet that criteria. And then they will publish it along with all the 60 school districts' SOFI reports. I think in oftentimes middle of the spring kind of thing. So April, May, it tends to get published on the SOFI website that's on the ministry website. Also in there are not just the school districts, but are the other what they're called the MUSH sector, the municipalities, universities, colleges and hospitals, and any other crown corporations that are out there will report exactly like this, the SOFI reports, and for, again, on their own sites. But that's the package. That's the obligation that all school districts have to meet. That's it.
thanks, Mr. Amos. Trustee Austin.
Sophie.
Hey, Ron, thanks. Stu, it comes up once in a while, but is BC considering changing the threshold? I know in Ontario they call it the sunshine list or something, and I think it's up at 100,000. And even that, I think they were talking about upping it more. I think it's been at this 75,000 for I don't know how many years, and of course times have changed incredibly. So is that a discussion that they have?
Not that I'm aware of. Absolutely. It's been 25 years in the makings kind of thing. And that sunshine list isn't what the ministry necessarily calls it. That's what the media call it. When they gather up the various SOFIs in Ontario, they do it. BC actually has its own sunshine list. I can't remember what agency, what media that publish it, but yes, the sunshine list is kind of a tongue-in-cheek in terms of the remuneration of individuals. But yes, I don't know. So you're saying Ontario did raise the threshold?
I think they did. I think it's 100,000. I think.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know in terms of.
No,
we haven't heard. Effectively, we're working off of guidelines that, to your point, are now 25 years old, and 75 and 25 were it and still it. And this is what you're seeing is the document is getting longer and longer because more and more people are more and more of our staff are getting to that threshold of 75. But in the meantime, I don't know. I'm not aware of any change in it.
no, it hasn't moved forever. Trustee Young.
Yes, I think at the Finance and Operations Committee meeting, we also talked a little bit, there's some big ticket items in the SOFI report in terms of payables. And some of those are for the track, right? So the money, Mr. Amos, my understanding is the money has been held in trust and the big payouts are anticipated payouts because of the track. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
Well, yeah, so from the supplier side, I think you're referring to. From the supplier side, every year we have capital works. Some year we have more than others. This year we had not only a fairly large capital program, thanks to Phil Monroe, our Director of Operations, of being able to get those projects approved, but also, yes, the track also added value to the supplier list. But yes, annually we always get capital, and so sometimes you're seeing roofers on there, sometimes you're seeing HVAC installers. In this case, as absolutely you're seeing H. Layton Contracting, for example, as our main excavator and earth moving contractor of the Bolinas track, and that's what you're seeing. And so those will ebb and flow with the projects. But you're right, that money wasn't all the burden of the board. Much of that money came from community partners, as you know, and so but we have to declare it as part of our obviously cash payments.
And we're also required under our charitable status to record any expenditures over 75,000. So it'll probably be doubled up when the charitable reports have to be filed for the district. Any other questions, trustees? Seeing none, we'll move on to policy, and that is Committee of the Whole policy is my domain. I draw your attention to the actual report that was filed because it will give you more information and background as to how things transpired or came to pass. What comes to the actual board table is only that which is to be motioned or moved and seconded to second reading. Particularly, I would note due to the BC, our DPAC committee discussion on policy 605, that we had a discussion, we've had a fulsome discussion. It is not moving forward due to the fact that we're going to be reworking it. So that is why one doesn't see it here in our agenda this evening. But in fact, if you look at the report, it will outline the kind of concerns that were raised at the table. Trustee Austin.
Sorry, Barry and I are both running to our wood stoves to stoke them, so maybe I missed it. Did I miss the vote on receiving the Sophie report?
Yes.
Okay. Boy, my wood stove's not that far away either.
Or
Okay.
maybe I forgot to call a question.
I don't think we voted.
I don't think
did the final vote on it, did we?
Okay, no,
We did not.
Okay, good.
My error. Thank you. Thank you. The wood stove is not that far away.
No,
Your
I
spidey
think I
senses.
missed it in that time.
Okay, I'm sorry. To accept the Sophie report, it was moved by Trustee Kellogg, seconded by, help me out, Mr. Amos. I didn't write it down this
Curlin?
time.
Trustee
Trustee
Curlin?
Curlin. Okay, and there's a few questions from the commentary. All those in favor? Thank you. And I'm glad you're all still nice and warm. So forthcoming from our report, which provides a little more commentary on things, we have two items that are here this evening for information. The attachment to the board policy 305 on public interest disclosure. It was a form. And then also attachment to the administrative procedure for board policy 900 on those items that privacy and management accountability need to be publicly available for the public to access from us at any time. So those are for information, but I have one motion here this evening based on our review of the 500 series, of which it was not necessarily that every policy within that section required us to take it away, have a better look at it, and make some amendments or changes. So you will see that policy 500, 501, and 502 in the notes will have gone back for consideration. But this evening, I would ask that the Board of Education, Qualicum accept the recommendation of the Policy Committee of the Whole that the following policies have been reviewed and confirmed as written, i.e. no changes. Policy 503, 505, 506, 508, 509, and 510. So moved by myself And a seconder, please. Thank you, trustee Kellogg. Are there any comments or questions, trustees? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Education Committee of the Whole, trustee Young.
It was a really good meeting, and then when I wrote the report, it just sounded horrible. It sounded like a report. And so my friends Karen and Jillian got at it, and I think it's a little bit better, but it really doesn't reflect all the really exciting learning that happens in that group. And I just don't quite know how to put my excitement in there, but I will, and I don't have the exact wording, so Board Chair Flynn, please correct me if I'm wrong. I will move that the board authority / authorized course, Indigenous Education, Cultural Connections with Community and Elders be accepted. Is that close enough?
Approved. Approved.
Approved. Thank you.
Approved. Okay, moved by trustee Young, seconded. Trustee Kellogg. A very exciting board authorized course for sure for people to look at, pages 99 to 107. And yeah, a tremendous amount of thought and a very thoughtful presentation to the Education Committee of the Whole on this course. So I see trustee Young again. Are you more comments?
Yes, I do, because I shared this with a friend of mine who is from another district. I shared this course syllabus with her, and she was just as excited as I was. It's a course that really focuses on Indigenous learners and Indigenous ways of knowing. But there's a little piece that's kind of a window for those of us who see ourselves as allies, maybe friends, that allows for learning across different cultures. And I think this is so important, because even though we have rights holders and we have huge, like this coast, the history of culture on this coast, it was so strong. But there are other cultures across Canada too that have strength. And so I was really happy to see that, and I really wish I could take the course, but I guess I'm not in high school anymore.
Other cultures, you mean Indigenous cultures?
Yeah. Okay. There was connection to Cree culture, for example. A lot of Treaty 1 people are Cree speakers. Anyway, I don't have to go into great depth.
Trustee Kellogg.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I thought the presentation was fantastic, and it's going to provide a meaningful educational experience to the students, and I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it'll be very special.
Yeah.
Call the question. All those in favor for the ball course to be authorized? Thank you very much. Carried. Excuse me. Oh, Ms. Austin. Trustee Austin.
Yes. Thank you. We're just sort of zipping along, so I'm just sort of popping in here. And Elaine was expressing a little bit of frustration with not being able to communicate necessarily what was happening in Ed Committee. So it did occur to me, I've had, relating back to Policy Committee, I have asked for Bylaw 3 to come forward for our review again. Even though we looked at it in the spring, I found that there was some language that was open to interpretation in it. And I would like us to look at it and perhaps clarify that language that I find a bit too open to interpretation. And it may open the door when we look at that language to perhaps allowing some of these different committees to look at recording, not not dependent on just, making a decision what time of the year and perhaps changing our minds partway through the year and stuff. So I just wanted to get that in there, that I hope to see bylaw 3 come forward so we can have that clarifying language. Thanks.
Thanks, Trustee Austin. No reports from outside organizations. So trustee information items, Superintendent Jory spoke to the fact that we evolved into some extra learning at all levels of exempt staff as well as the trustees. Trustees attended the BC School Trustees Fall Academy, where there was some exceptional presentations, and Trustee Kellogg wrote a super report for us, and we'll kick off with Trustee Kellogg, and then if Trustee Young wants to add things, or myself, as we were in attendance, we can do so, but a very thoughtful report. Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. So over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to read the conclusion of my report because if people don't have time, this kind of gives a synopsis of what the weekend was like. But the BCSTA Academy provided invaluable learning opportunities and a chance to connect with fellow trustees and educational leaders was highlighted. While all of the topics covered were essential, the session on inclusion, empowerment, and justice, and particularly a presentation with Natalie Redwolf Pogue, left a lasting impact. As trustees, it's critical that we continue to advocate for the support of inclusion education practices and ensure that all students, regardless of the ability or their ability or background, have an opportunity to succeed. This event reaffirmed our collective responsibility to ensure that our schools remain a place of empowerment, inclusion, and justice for every student. And I just wanted to say that Natalie is a teacher in Campbell River. She's also a woman with autism, and her presentation was moving. And I would hope that at some point, perhaps our district on one of the professional development days could invite her down to do a presentation for our special, our learning support department, because I think everybody could benefit from the topic that she shared with us. Thanks.
Thanks, Trustee Kellogg. Trustee Young.
We all have different perspectives, right? But I think the other thing that particular presentation showed is the power of story. And for me, that was the highlight, was we need to be listening. Oh, Dr. Jory, I know you like that quantitative stuff, but we need to be listening to people's lived experience, especially the lived experience of students who may be having some difficulties in school. And I have some ideas about how we might kind of access that information. I hope I get a chance to talk about it or rant about it as I have over and over again. But I think our role in the governance end of things is to remove the barriers that exist for all of our students to be totally engaged and totally fulfill their potential. And if we can start to work away at some of those barriers, I think that would be a very good thing. So I was pretty excited about what they call street data, which is what I call people's lived experience stories. Great stuff.
Yeah, and I guess the other domain that the meeting covered that is sort of a passion of mine is our human resources and labor relations side of our work as governors of the system. BC Public School Employers Association, as we are entering into bargaining now in 2025 at the levels of our local tables, as well as provincial bargaining and our support staff tables, looked at the elements of what that it will entail for our work and bargaining plans that require approval and oversight by boards of education, individual boards of education, which also then begs the question of conflict of interest for trustees and our place in making our decisions on a number of levels when we take our oath of office to be mindful of our moral and fiduciary responsibilities for decisions that we make. So that was another session that was kicking off the next year's activities regarding local bargaining, provincial teacher bargaining, and our support staff bargaining. Trustee Austin.
Well, thank you, Eve, Carol, Elaine, Peter, and Ron for attending the Academy. I feel like I missed some pretty good workshops. But I'm just going to throw this out there to Elaine, who just stepped away, but that's okay.
She's back.
Maybe it's something we can put on an education committee agenda at some point, is the student voice piece. I'm sorry to have missed that workshop on student voice in our schools and how it's empowering to the students and how it can affect culture. So maybe that's something we could just talk about in Ed Committee sometime.
It was a different slant on student voice than I think that you're thinking, but that's okay. I think it's all still very valuable. It was talking to students.
I mean, we could start with a report on what it was.
Street data. It was, yep. Dr. Jory.
Yeah, let's not forget, people, that we certainly met and with students during our strategic planning process. Remember, each school had meetings where principals worked with students directly and gave us summaries of that information. And then we checked in with students as we reached near the end of our process. We also worked with students directly during Equity Scan. We had student voice sessions for the school district. I know I attended one of those. And we also did a action research project in our school district that was supported by Shane Safir herself, where we interviewed students in the margins. So a number of our staff was involved with that. And then that data has informed our practice. So as far as us, being stuck on the quantitative side, far from it, we have enriched our understanding of our students on numerous different ways through numerous deeper conversations, and we'll endeavor to keep doing that. And what I would say is, I think we have a very clear picture of what they're saying. The key is for us to actually do something about it. Yeah. And I know that this isn't a Qualicum problem. This is pretty much an everybody problem. We talk to kids, then we stop, right? And it's really critical that we take that information and we continue to move our system forward with the information that they have shared with us. And we owe it to them to do that. It is disrespectful to listen, hold a conversation, and then not actually change anything as a result. So that's on us. But the conversations have absolutely occurred and will continue.
I'm pleased to hear Shane Safir was part of our look at stuff. That's awesome, because she was our keynote presenter on Thursday evening. Yeah. Trustee Kellogg and then Trustee Young.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I do know that the schools are having dialogue with the students, and I think that's wonderful. And I think we are moving in the right direction. And I do want to reiterate what Peter was saying, that we were having workshops there because all school districts are dealing with the same thing. We're not isolated in this type of thing. So yeah, it was really interesting anyways. Yeah. And we did learn some stuff, and maybe we could do some stuff better. Who knows?
Yep. Trustee Young.
Yeah, I'm certainly not meaning to be critical of what we're doing. And to your point, Dr. Jory, my thesis looked at agency and looked at all the dimensions of agency. And certainly it is disempowering if you hear people's voices and then you don't act. And so our role as governors, I think, is to constantly move with those voices. I think, talking about we'll just talk about this more at some other point, because I could go on at some length and I get ranty, and we don't need that at 7 o'clock at night.
No, we have education committee, and that's where we should sink our teeth into it. Yeah.
You bet. And I'll sink.
No, stay afloat, please. Stay afloat. Okay, there's no unfinished business and there's no correspondence. Do I see any questions from anyone in attendance? Seeing none, could I have a mover to adjourn? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Have a pleasant evening, everyone. And as everyone knows, it's a short time frame till our next meeting in December, early December, December 16th, I think. So have a good evening.